Well, it's Monday at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. So, of course, here we are. Thank you so much for joining me. I have a topic I want to talk about today, and that is creating urgency around the need for improvements to your customer experience. You know, I talk to a lot of people who are calling up for help for my company, for example, and one of the things that they struggle with is they say, you know, there's so many things that we need to improve, any areas where we may be letting the customer down, but I somehow can't get traction on them. Sometimes it's the little quick fixes. Everyone's like, sure, let's improve that. But when something requires more effort, maybe it requires redoing some technology system or some other kind of significant either investment, or requires some part of the organization to have to operate or do things in a different way. Sometimes it can just feel like you're moving through molasses trying to get the organization to change. In fact, sometimes people within an organization become so accustomed to certain problems in the customer experience they're delivering, they just accept it as inevitable. Yeah, it just takes us 4 days to ship things from our warehouse. Like, just get used to it. That's how it is here, you know. Or you know, yeah, I mean, you know, not everyone who tries to look up their account is gonna find it. Some people are just gonna get an error. That's how it is. Or whatever it may be, whatever the issues are within your customer experience, you may find there are some things that honestly nobody's really that interested in fixing. I'd be curious to know, put in the chat if you have that problem within your organization. So I'm sorry, I'm just going to close this door here. Sorry to do that while live casting, but someone was making noise in the next room. Hopefully we can cut that out in the version that we put as a replay. Anyway, so how do you create that urgency? Well, you know, one thing I would, you know, kind of start by pointing out is that anytime you want to persuade anybody of anything, you're thinking about the fact that our minds kind of have two sides, right? Like there's the left side of the brain and there's the right side of the brain. And very often people will tell you that the left side of the brain is where we do our rational thinking, and the right side of the brain is the creative side of the brain. I'm trying to get to my, oh man, I seem to have lost my Google Slides. Sorry, folks. I seem to have lost my Google Slides tab that I'm actually sharing. Where could that have gone? I might have to open that back up again. So sorry for the glitch here. It is so strange because it's still broadcasting, and yet I no longer have that tab available to me to change to the next slide. That's not going to work. Okay, I'm opening it back up, and I'm going to need to reshare that screen, I'm thinking. And so give me 2 seconds to do that because I want you to see the slide. Share screen. And Chrome tab. All right. Sorry, folks. Almost ready. Okay. All right. I believe we are back in business. No idea what happened there. Probably tried to click to the tab and accidentally closed it. So, all right. Hopefully you see my brain now. Well, it's not my brain, someone's brain, or an illustration of the brain. Anyway, so what I was saying was that if you're trying to appeal to the left side of the brain to explain to people, look, guys, we have to make improvements. You know, here's why. You may be trying to use things like competitive examples. You know, our checkout process is 9 steps, but our competitors is only 3. Or someone else is improving, got a better conversion. You have competitive sales statistics, or traffic, or number of repeat visits, or time on site, or just pure customer satisfaction scores. You know, you should be collecting all this data on an ongoing basis, and you certainly should be able to talk to the people within your organization around why these very logical reasons to drive change, to drive improvement exist. And that's really appealing to the rational side of their mind, and absolutely you should be doing that. And I'm guessing you probably are already doing that. And that's why in today's time, I want to focus a little bit less on those techniques, as important and relevant as they are, but a little bit more on the other side of the brain, the emotional side of the brain, because I want to share with you 3 key techniques that can appeal to people from the emotional perspective. And the reason that you need these, well, a couple reasons. One reason is because we know that most decision-making is actually more emotionally than rationally driven. And then very often we rationalize whatever decision we make through logic and statistics or something along those lines. but also because very often people have emotional resistance to wanting to make certain kinds of changes. After all, if you've got a rational argument for making an improvement to the website, let's just say, and it doesn't really create a problem for anybody, you have to invest a little bit of money, but it's pretty clear you're going to get that money back. Those are the improvements that you probably don't need to create so much urgency for, because everyone's probably like, yeah, sure, fine, make the change, whatever, we don't care, it's all good. The ones where you tend to get more resistance and then you have to work harder to persuade people are the ones where there's some emotional baggage. Maybe it's because people are spent an enormous amount of time and money to set it up to work a certain way. And if you're going to change it, they're going to feel like they're throwing away all the hard work that they did. Or maybe it's because it's just going to be a big pain in the butt and they just don't want to have to deal with a hassle like that. Or maybe it's because they feel like trying to convince the organization is going to be so painful and problematic, or they're going to have to put their neck on the line in order to do it, and they don't want to do that. For some reason beyond the entirely rational, there's an emotional desire from somebody or the people that you need to persuade to not move forward with it right now. And I don't know exactly what that reason is in your case, but these are usually the tougher ones. Because otherwise, if it's a rational decision, we're probably all looking at the same set of facts, see that it's the rational thing to do, and you're doing it. I'm here to talk about the things that are tougher. So when you have to create urgency around improvements where there seems to be resistance, and you've already explained the rational reasons, and you just aren't getting alignment, that's when you need to look at the other side of the brain, because the most effective, persuasive content of any sort appeals to both sides. And frankly, the part that's the more powerful is the emotional anyway. That's why you see so many television commercials that don't even talk about the product, right? They just show you some emotional scene and then they say, buy this product. And it's like, but you haven't even told me why to buy it. You haven't even explained to me why that heartwarming scene of a mother and their child and the puppy has anything to do with, Clorox wipes. But somehow you've convinced me that if I buy Clorox wipes, I'll have this heartwarming scene of a mother and the child and the puppy, And the reason that they do that is because the truth is, if they can create that emotional association, that's much more powerful than explaining to you, well, Clorox wipes are good for these reasons. And of course, they have other advertising that does that and explains the percentage of germs that they kill and all that. But it's the feelings that drive most behavior. But of course, if you combine both, even better. And as I say, you probably are already doing the left side. So let's talk about the right side. So what do you do to get people to really give you their personal and emotional commitment? Well, you have to appeal to their emotions. So today, let's talk about 3 specific tactics that I've seen work extraordinarily well in corporate environments to get teams, whether it's IT or marketing or board of director, CXO level folks, to really kind of engage emotionally with the importance of some kind of improvement to customer experience. The first technique I want to talk about, I learned from, I'm not sure I can actually share where, but I was speaking to the chief digital officer of a Fortune 500 company. And he was describing to me what was his company's most successful method for doing this. So I want to share it with you. It's curated customer calls. Essentially, what they do is every week, they select calls from their call center that reflect specific customer experience problems that they want to create more awareness around. It could be problems with ordering. It could be problems with store hours. It could be problems with product availability, product quality, etc. And they edit them into a 30-minute audio file. In other words, they take snippets of different calls. It might be 2 minutes of this call, 3 minutes of that call, whatever, into 30 minutes. And every week, they have a 30-minute meeting scheduled with most of the top executives of the company, not just the customer service, customer experience people, they're there, but people from marketing, people from IT, people from product, people from retail, et cetera. I guess I'm kind of giving you a clue as to what industry this is, but I'm still not telling you the company, so I guess it's okay. And the way the meeting goes is everyone sits in the conference room and they play the 30-minute curated audio file, and everybody listens. The rule in the meeting is no talking. No talking, no solution. 30-minute audio file, 30-minute meeting. So as you can imagine, there are no other agenda items. Everyone comes in, they sit down, they quietly listen to 30 minutes of calls, and then they leave. That's the entire meeting. And they specifically don't want solutioning or discussion because they don't want to hear the why. They don't want to hear the defensiveness. They just want everybody to internalize and just sit there and listen to these challenges that customers are facing. And of course, that one 30-minute call, no doubt, 30-minute meeting, no doubt spurs many other meetings, right? After the meeting, and this is how this executive was explaining, people are clustering in the hallway. People are talking, well, what are we going to do? What do you think about that? What's causing that? How can we fix that? It inspires. What does it do? It gets people engaged. It gets people committed. It gets people to hear the voice of a customer that is in pain and really understand the kind of challenge and problem that they're going through. Because when someone says, oh, we really need to add PayPal to our website, we must accept PayPal. And a lot of people might be like, all right, I mean, that's fine, put it on the backlog, but I'm not sure it's a priority. And then you listen to customers calling who can't figure out how to pay for their order, whose credit cards either don't work because it's the wrong region of the world, or they don't have a credit card, there's lower socioeconomic status, and they're trying to use their debit card, and the debit card doesn't work, and they just really want to order this product, and there's no way they can do it. Well, all of a sudden, you look at PayPal, just as an example, very differently than when you just saw it as one more feature request, one more type of tender that we want to accept on the website. So that's the first technique. Try this. If you are in a business where there's some kind of customer calls that you can edit down from your call center recordings, and by the way, it's not just about the call center, right? It's not just about improving the call center, because people are calling with problems from the website. People are calling with problems from the stores. People are calling with all kinds of things. So we're learning, and and of course, one of the things that's important when you do this, you can misuse the power of emotional impact on people, right? Because when you just see numbers, when you see what percentage of customers have an issue, you may even say, oh, 0.5% of our customers can't pay because they don't have PayPal, or whatever the issue is. Well, that 0.5%, it may not seem that huge, but when you start to hear the voices of those customers, that's when you're going to get more emotionally engaged. The truth is, though, this can be misused. If there's a problem that only one customer in 5 years have ever had, but it's caused that one customer a lot of pain, and you play that audio for somebody, you may actually trigger their commitment to do something about it, even when it doesn't make business sense. A colleague in a networking group I'm in referred to this as the tyranny of the anecdote, right? Oh, we had this one customer with this one problem. We have to fix that problem. So it's important that who's ever curating these calls have a sense of balance, right? We want to play for people the emotional evidence of the pain for those problems that it really does make sense from a business perspective to solve. In other words, that's where the left brain comes in, right? We don't want to be overly left-brained focused, but we don't want to be overly right-brain focused. We don't want to say, oh, this one person's having such a problem, we must solve it for them. If that doesn't make sense, it's going to cost $5 million and only one customer every 2 years has the problem. So the people who curate the calls are looking from a rational perspective at what really does deserve some level of focus, and then determining from a right-brain perspective, what are the sample calls that will drive people to connect and understand what that issue is really all about. So that's the first technique that I want to share with you, that of curated customer calls in a ritual of, in this company's case, a weekly executive meeting with no talking, just listening. And actually, I'm remembering one of the things that executive said to me, which is one of the reasons that there's no talking in this meeting is something he learned in kindergarten. And he said that his kindergarten teacher used to tell him that when your mouth is working, your ears don't work. So something like that. I might have slightly misquoted his kindergarten teacher. But in any case, point being, when people are talking, they're not listening very often. And so let's make sure that we don't have that risk. People know there's no talking, there's only listening. Okay, let's move on to the second technique. The second technique is a little bit similar. It's videos of user testing. In our business, for example, we're often running research sessions where we have customers come in, or sometimes we do this via Zoom or other, online tools. And we ask customers to engage with a website or an app or some other kind of digital tool like a kiosk, and ask them to try to complete a task, to place an order, to sign up for a loyalty program, to return a product, to do a movie review, whatever it may be. And then we observe the process that they go through and what parts they fly through and where they encounter any challenges or problems. And that type of observational user testing can be very, very helpful in rooting out problems. And it's not uncommon for customers to have very serious problems, even on major websites, and to get emotional or get frustrated, get confused, get angry. Not always so much that they throw the laptop across the room or something dramatic like this. But nevertheless, you can really connect with somebody and you can see the challenge that they're facing and you can see how it's influencing them. Because if you say, well, if 1% of our customers have this particular problem and the data shows you that, you may or may not be moved to do something about it. But when you get a sense of how those customers are impacted and you see their faces and you watch them and you empathize with them and realize how painful you're making it for them, and frankly, when you realize the likely long-term impact on this customer, that this isn't just like, oh, they got an error message, but like they're trying to get something done. They're trying to book a trip and they need to reserve, their flight, and they're in a hurry and they're trying to get something done and they keep entering information and they keep getting an error message. It may seem like a small thing, an error message, but you're driving them crazy because you're not letting them achieve what they're trying to get done. So getting that sense, I remember one time doing something for a client in the travel industry. I don't know why this one example just sticks out for me, but there were some challenges with someone trying to sign up for the loyalty program. So what would happen very often is you were trying to make a booking and then it would say, are you in the loyalty program? If not, would you like to join the loyalty program? And so some people be like, yeah, sure, I'll join the loyalty program. But if you click that button, it took you to a kind of a Byzantine process that was very, very challenging. And you'd see people have this feeling, and they came up with a screen that was like, here's why you really should join the loyalty program. You don't want to miss out on getting points for this trip and all that. People are like, yeah, they're right. They've convinced me that I'd be an idiot to not join the loyalty program. And then you put me into this process where I feel like I'll never make it through. I don't have all the information you're asking me for. I'm getting weird errors. And then I have this horrible frustration, which is like, I need to make my booking. I don't want to miss out on this thing that you've just dangled in front of me and told me I would get, but I can't figure out how to do this. And now this is super frustrating. And, I'm sure you've had this experience as well, trying to get something done and hitting these kinds of barriers in your own life. And as you know, it's a real emotional experience. And so what we like to do is to show the user, but also show the screen, whether it's an app or it's a screen, a browser or whatever it may be. So the person watching the video can watch the person's face and can watch what they're doing on screen and understand the relationship between those two things. And when they're pausing and when they're confused and when they, when they get an error message, what does the error message say, and those kinds of things. And I can't tell you how often I've heard this phrase, that's impossible, right? Showing videos. So what we'll often do, not necessarily in a silent session, but what we'll often do is we'll bring key people in and we'll, similar to the call center example in a way, play different videos and say, look, here's the challenge, here's the problem, and here's a couple short video clips of people encountering that problem. And I can't tell you how often someone, let's say in IT, may say, oh, that's not possible because you'd never have this problem when you're trying to sign up for the loyalty program because we have this and this and this, and problem A doesn't really ever occur. And we're like, okay, well, we tested it with 8 users and it happened twice. And here's the 2 videos. And then you see it happening and you see the screen and you see the person, and it's hard to sit there and say, oh yeah, that can't happen with our system, right? And it's not only about convincing IT, but it does help. When IT actually sees what's happening and sees what pain the users are experiencing, and frankly, just has the evidence that the problem really happens. And also sometimes the details of how it happened. Then they say, oh, well, yeah, it's impossible. But if she does that, the thing she did in the video, well, then it's possible. I didn't realize you meant if someone doesn't have a driver's license and they can't provide this data or that data. And it's like, well, exactly. So this is the problem we need to solve. So again, another way of connecting people emotionally, you're looking in the eyes of the person. And what's great is there's a lot of tools when you do this that can just use the camera. If you're using like a laptop, uses the camera to video the person's face. And then, of course, it's using screen captures to video and you can do this on both a phone, by the way, and or a tablet or a laptop or a desktop computer like an iMac, to record the person's face and record the screen. And you really get a powerful kind of 2-punch effect to understand exactly what's going on and exactly how what's happening on the screen is impacting people emotionally. And when people see that, it's powerful. Well, just another stock photo and error someone might get. And so that's the second one. And now here's the third one. The third one is mystery shopping. I tell a story sometimes of an experience that I had once a number of years ago, different travel client, actually, than the one I was just talking about. But we were asked to redesign the booking process for a vacation resort, a bunch of vacation resorts. And so then we were told, okay, you have 20 minutes as part of a longer meeting to show the CEO and the board of directors the improvements that you're making. But you only have 20 minutes, so you got to be tight, right? And this was a pretty big project. So we only just had a slice of an agenda. So we decided to just focus on the future, to show them what the future booking process was going to look like when we made all these improvements, enhancements. They were going to spend millions and millions of dollars upgrading their systems to deliver this wonderful new booking process, which we had designed. So we went in and we explained, oh, here's how it's going to work. And you're going to be able to automatically search across all of the properties and find the perfect room. And then when you book it, we're going to upsell these things. And later, if you want to make a change with one click, you can go back, you can modify your reservation. It's so simple and easy and great. We were done. The CEO, and they didn't really look that excited. I was a little surprised. Like, why aren't they more? I thought it was pretty cool, and I thought, well, I don't know, maybe our stuff's not as good as we think it is, because they're not that excited about it. And at the end, the CEO said, I mean, this all makes sense to me, he said, but isn't this pretty much how it works today? And we were all like, I mean, not at all, right? The pre-existing system was very clunky. You couldn't search across resorts. If you made a reservation and you wanted to change it later, you had to call the call center, even if you made the reservation online. Nothing that we were showing them was the way it worked at that moment. But, they didn't really experience very often or ever the current shopping experience of their own properties. Because after all, if they wanted a room at their own resort, they didn't do that. They, told their assistant and got it booked. So the point is, giving executives or people in IT or marketing or whoever you're trying to get on board, whoever right brain you're trying to activate, giving them a situation where they are going to sit down and use the customer experience of your own company, mystery shopping, as we call it, is very, very powerful. So we'll do, for example, in a workshop, we'll bring a bunch of executives together and we'll say, okay, here's a scenario. You need to buy a gift for your spouse, or you need to book a trip to Iceland or whatever, right? We'll give them a specific scenario that's obviously appropriate to whatever their business does, and then ask them to accomplish it as if they were a customer without the aid of their assistant, right? Without any special favoritism. Sometimes we'll do the same thing with the call center. If they have a problem on the website, they need to call the call center, but no fair saying this is the senior vice president of marketing calling, they just have to be like a normal customer. And man, do they have emotional experiences. I have done this many, many times, and I can tell you that very frequently, the response of executives and others is, oh my God, I had no idea what it was like. And by the way, listen, if it's a great experience, then wonderful. They have a wonderful experience, and they hopefully appreciate and recognize the elegance that has been built into that experience by the team that's done it. But since on this video, we're talking about when you're in the situation that you're trying to create urgency around critical changes, I'm assuming that you need some critical changes. And when those people have to sit there and use that application themselves and experience the problem personally, it gives them a connection to it. It reminds me a little bit of you'll see sometimes there's a law someone's trying to pass to, give rights to gay marriage or to, fight cancer or something. And you may find there's a whole bunch of legislators who aren't that supportive of it, but who's the first ones to support it are the ones that have a personal experience. They have a relative, their mother that passed away of that type of cancer, or their child is, gay and is going to get gay, wants to get married or whatever it is. All of a sudden they have a personal experience and they can empathize with it in a totally different way. And so this is the same kind of idea. You just want them to have the experience of going through it for real, not a demo, not just showing them the screens and being like, look, this is the checkout screen. We've had projects where we've redesigned, for example, a checkout process. And we've doubled the conversion of websites through redesigning the checkout process because there were so many people that got frustrated and gave up halfway through the checkout process, for example, in one project. And even though it doesn't necessarily always double, very, very often, almost always, there's significant improvements when we do these redesigns. And if you looked at them side by side, sometimes, when you take like a homepage of a website and you redesign it, you see, here's the before and here's the after. And you look at them side by side, you're like, oh my God, the before was so ugly and the after is so beautiful. But sometimes when you're redesigning something like a shopping checkout process, you could look at the before and after and you could be like, I don't get it. What's the difference? Like, it doesn't obviously look way better. But you know what? The way the error messages come up is different. The way the flow works is different. The wording of certain things is different. And those might seem like very small things, but those very small things could very well be the things that are stopping people from successfully completing the transaction. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is, if you have people who say, yeah, I look at the website all the time. I've seen it. I don't need to go through the process. I've been shown what the checkout screens look like. That is not the same thing. If you just look at two screenshots of a checkout screen that has 99% conversion or funnel conversion from people who enter and exit, and one that has 50%, you might not be able to quickly spot the differences just by looking at screenshots. but try to check out, try to use it, you'll see the differences immediately. So, and you got to give people real tasks, not playing around, not just clicking around. Give them a real task. They've actually got to buy something and actually have it sent to their house, and they've got to pay with their actual credit card. And all of a sudden, they're going to encounter potentially all kinds of issues that they may not see in the screenshot. So mystery shopping, very powerful, works in a lot of different types of customer experience. Works in call centers, of course, works in digital properties, works in physical stores. Try to take someone to a physical store of their brand that they've not been to before and ask them to go find something. You need to find a sweatshirt in size extra, extra large that's green. Go find it or whatever. Try to find out, you need one that's all natural fibers or whatever the assignment is, and see how successfully they're able to accomplish it. Is the store laid out in an obvious way? Is the signage in the store easy to follow? Are the associates helpful, or not? And well, like any activity, we should have a sincere openness to learning whatever it is that we learn. You might discover some things that are great about the existing experience. That's fine. Creating a burning platform for change doesn't necessarily mean you have to prove that everything is horrible. That's not your goal. But in fact, sometimes when a bunch of things are awesome, and there's just a few things that are really pulling everything else down, it's even more motivating. You're like, oh my God, this is so great, except for these things that are holding us back. If only we could fix these two things, then we'd have something that's truly awesome. And then, of course, fixing those two things may be a big hassle, right? Maybe we need to upgrade SAP to fix those two things, or we need to hire a different team, or we need to, whatever it is in this case. Obviously, those things that are easy to fix, well, those usually don't face so much resistance in the first place. So certainly you want to do those. But again, the goal of this video is to help you when you have those types of situations where even though there's kind of a rational reason to do something, people just aren't totally getting on board because they're not emotionally invested. So I think that's my last slide. Yeah. So in summary, 3 key techniques to get to that right side of the brain that we talked about today. And these are 3 super powerful techniques. There are others, but man, if you use even one of these 3, you're probably going to get your goal. And if you use all these 3, I don't think you're going to come back and be like, can I get 3 more? I think you're going to find you can go a long way. The first 2 are all about making sure the key decision makers really empathize and understand the customer situation. And I probably wouldn't use both. I'd probably use one or the other depending on the situation. In one case, you're playing back call center recordings and making sure people listen. And the other, you're playing back videos of people using more real world or digital properties where there's more of a visual component as well. And similarly, making sure they understand and they can watch and see what are the issues and seeing both sides, seeing the reaction, but also seeing the screen. And then lastly, just having the experience yourself, being a customer and truly, truly not a special, super privileged, I'm an employee, I get to cut the line customer, but a real customer that gets the whole experience. And if you use these techniques, I strongly, strongly expect that you'll light up that right side of the brain. And, you might not achieve persuasion if their experience doesn't prove your point. This isn't a surefire thing, but if you genuinely are creating significant customer pain, you're going to create a lot more empathy on the right side. And then if you pair that with the logical, rational reasons, because when someone feels the pain of the customer, they're likely to want to fix the problem. That's the idea, that we make the decisions, or we at least tee up the decisions. Our preference comes from our emotional side. And then we look to the rational side and say, okay, does the data support this thing that I already want to do? So you want to make sure you have both. But anyway, hopefully these have been some techniques that can help you to make sure that you are getting that emotional component in connecting with whoever in your organization. You have to get on board, whether it's the people supplying the money or the people that have to do the work or whoever else. Maybe it's even a partner. Maybe you're in some sort of a partnership, or you have a supplier that's needs to change something they're doing in order for you to get a better customer experience. And you need to persuade them that it's worth it for them to make this change, because your mutual customer, the person perhaps who's buying through you, but they're buying the thing from your supplier, is not having a good experience. And again, you just need to get them emotionally connected. Or maybe you have other scenarios. I'm sure there are many other examples as well, where these types of examples, even an internal application. For example, if you have an HR portal, which is used by all your employees, that would be equally appropriate to use tools like this to understand what is the actual experience we're giving those employees. So I'm sure you could think of even more ways to apply these 3 techniques. Hopefully they've been helpful to you. This has been interesting. Thanks so much for watching, and have an awesome day.